All right, guys, again, welcome back. I'm now recording this so you guys can look at this video later of what we're doing right now. Again, what we did is we opened up the Unity Hub. We created a new project, a new 3D project, and called it, our name and the words Custom 3D World. What we did after that, when it first opened up, make sure to change your layout to default by clicking up on Layouts in the upper right-hand corner. Click on Default. And basically, what we need to do is go to the asset store either here, or sometimes it's easier to go to the asset store in our web browser. And so to find the asset store, remember, we just type in, you can just Google asset store Unity and you should be able to find it. So there's the Unity asset store. It's assetstore.unity.com. Go here, search for assets. First thing you needed to do was type in standard and download these standard assets that are free. So this is stuff that you could use in your custom 3D game that we're going to make right now. And once you find it, you need to click on Open in Unity, click on Open Link, and it's going to pull up the package manager in Unity, which I like to actually click and sometimes drag into a window right over here. Remember, you guys can move around any of these windows in Unity by clicking on the name of the window and moving it to wherever you want. And then you have these multiple tabs that you can then switch between, like right here, this project view, the package manager, the console. Console is what displays all the errors or bugs in your game, which you will learn a lot about in your future. But package manager, for standard assets, when it pulls it up after you click this link Open in Unity from your web browser, you need to click on download. This will take some time to do, hopefully not too long. And then once you download it, you click on import to bring all of these assets into your project folder, which will now show up under your assets. You can see here that here's the standard assets folder of what I just downloaded. And then I also showed you guys how to go back to the asset store and type in nature. And you're going to sort these results by free only by going to pricing right here and type in free assets only. And the one that I really like is this Nature Starter Kit 2. So you click on that one. Again, click Open in Unity. And then when it opens it up in the asset store here, you just click, or the package manager, you just click on download and import. So I've already got those in here because I started before I recorded this video. And remember that you can find a video of what I'm doing right now also in our Empower under Empower, under this custom terrain game level. I've got this video that I made a couple years ago that should still be up to date, but if it's not, just let me know. There could be a couple things that look slightly different. But pretty much we're going back into Unity, and what we want to start on is by putting in the ground, right? We need the ground to make a game level. And so what we're going to do is we're going to click on Assets. I'm sorry, Game Object, 3D Object, and right here where it says Terrain. Terrain is their fancy word for land or the ground. So click Terrain, and boom, it puts a terrain right here, which we can now start to build this custom 3D world, right? Notice I'm using my scroll wheel right now on my mouse to zoom in and out. On a touchpad, you can use your fingers to pinch in or out. If you hold the right click on the mouse button down or your touchpad, you can pivot and look in all directions. If you click your scroll wheel button on your mouse in and move up or down or left or right, it'll move that way. And then, you can also, if you don't have a mouse, which is really ill-advised, if you guys don't have a mouse, you should get one. Mr. Dieterle, just so you know, has made mice available for you guys. If you want to email Mr. Dieterle, if you don't have a mouse and you need one, send me an email. And what he's going to be doing is putting some mice at the front desk at LHS for you guys to go and pick up, because it's really hard to work in Unity without a mouse. You can do it, but I don't recommend it. But another easy way to move around if you don't have a mouse is click on this hand tool in the tools area up here in the upper left-hand corner, and you can click with the hand and use it to move left, right, up, and down. Okay, click and drag. But we've got our terrain, and now what I want to show you guys how to do, which I think we go through in the video right here. If you ever want to get to And then you just click. Actually, let's open this right here. Go to that. Skipping forward right here. This is just where I show you guys how to install this nature starter kit. I made the terrain here. The grass have some at least a grass. And so the first step, we want to make this ground look like something good, right? Something like grass or dirt. So again, here in the hierarchy window, we open up this sample scene, or if you guys named the scene something different, that's fine. And we click on terrain. This is the terrain game object. And if you ever want to zoom in on one of these objects, you just double click it and it will actually center it on the scene view. And again, the scene view is kind of like the God mode where you can see everything in your game level, whereas the game view is what the player is going to see when you press the play button. And in this case right now, we haven't set this up, but also it looks kind of weird. So we go back to the scene view here. And what we're going to do is, again, we want to paint this ground to look good. And so what we do is we click on terrain in our hierarchy, and then in the inspector, which gives us all the details for whatever game object we have selected, we can see here that under this terrain, there are some options here. Paint terrain, paint trees, paint details, and terrain settings. And so what I want to do is click on paint terrain because I want to paint it with some grass textures. A texture, guys, is just a picture, right? It's a picture file that you can basically tile or layer onto any 3D object in Unity. And so you can literally download a picture of your face and you could use that to paint the ground here if you wanted to. And I'll probably show you guys how to do that at some point. It's kind of funny. But for now, what we want to do is go down and change this razor lower terrain, change this to paint texture. And then we're going to say the texture that we want is we got to click on edit terrain layers. And so edit terrain layers, hit create layer. And right here, what this is doing, it's actually showing us all of the pictures or textures in our project, in our assets right now. And these are only here because we downloaded that standard assets and that nature starter kit has some textures built into it. Okay. And by the way, guys, as I'm going through this, if anyone has any questions, make sure to speak up or throw it into the chat and I can address it. So if you get stuck at all or you're like, hey, that Camel, that part didn't make sense, let me know in the chat. All right. But a few different things we can do here is, yeah, we can just scroll down and look at all these. These are all different textures we can use. So we can just kind of look through if we want and pick one. But usually what you're looking for with a terrain texture is something that's a square and that, you know, obviously looks like what you want. Like this grass right here would look weird if it was tiled lots of times. So what we're going to do is probably do one like this, grass hill albedo. That came in the standard assets package. I'm going to click on that and then double click. And boom, you can see what it did is it basically tiled this grass. See how you can see the little squares or the tiles down there? That is basically the grass tiled just over and over. So if you were to play on it or zoom in, it would look like grass. You can change how big the layers are if you want, but for now, that's all I want to show you. I also want to show you how later on we're going to want to add some mountains with snow on top. So I want to add a couple more terrain layers. The first one that you add is what ends up being the ground. And so usually the first one I add is the grass. If you wanted this to be like a desert, I would add like a desert sand texture to it first, and then I would go and add whatever I want. But I'm going to hit edit terrain layers, create layer, and I'm going to look for, I think there's one like that looks like dirt, which is what I'm going to use for the mountains right here, grass rock. That looks close enough. So I'm going to click this one, double click, and now this one's in there. And I'm also going to try and see if there's a snow one on here. I don't know if there is or not. You can even type and search in these textures to see what you have. So if I type in snow, I've got nothing. So actually I want to show you guys, this is pretty cool. If you want to get your own texture, if you wanted to use your own face as a texture or something weird, you can go find the image file. In this case, I'm going to go to Google and I'm going to type in snow texture and click on images and pull up one of these square snow textures. This one looks okay, I guess. And then I just right click on it, click save image as, and I'm going to go and find where I saved this game, which I think I saved mine I have my games saved in a certain spot, and or not. Where did I save that? To find out where you have a project saved, you open up the Unity Hub, and you can go and look and see where you have it saved. So this custom 3D world is in fact, you can click the 3 dots and say show in Explorer. And so it's in, it's in this Unit 5 UI. So I put it in a kind of a weird spot. So basically, to save this image, I'm going to go save it in my project folder in the assets folder. So in my case, in your guys' case, you probably should be saving your games all to the desktop because I think that's the easiest place to find them. But just keep in mind, if you ever forget where you saved it, just go into that, again, that Unity Hub, go find the project, click the 3 dots, and click Show in Explorer. So it'll show you where exactly it's located on your computer. So I'm going to go into Custom 3D World. Actually, I think it's Tyler Campbell, right? Yes, Tyler Campbell, Custom 3D World. Go into my assets. And right here, I'm just going to go into my standard assets. And I'm going to save this under environment. Actually, I'll just save it under assets to make it easy. So I'm going to save it in my assets folder. I'm going to call this JPEG image. I'm going to call it snow texture. Hit save. And again, I just pulled this up in Google, clicked on images, found the image I want, right click on it, click save image as, and choose to save it in your Unity projects asset folder. So now if I go back to my Unity project, check it out. If I go to my assets folder now, look what is in there. Snow texture. It's in there as an image. And check this out. I can now click on, again, terrain, go into my paint texture button right here, change this from raise or lower terrain to paint texture. And where it says terrain layers, I'm going to click edit terrain layers, create layer. And I'm going to search for that snow one that I just added. And there she is right there. Double click on it. And now that's there. I think it's kind of weird because it's not a square. Hopefully that's not a problem, but I think it'll be okay. And so check it out. So if I wanted to paint these textures, I again click on the paint texture button right here, change this from raise or lower terrain to paint texture. I'm going to click on this snow one, and let's just, so click on it. I have to double click, and then with your little brush here, now I can click and I can paint in what's supposed to be snow. And keep in mind the way that this gets painted on, guys, can be changed. When you scroll down in the inspector, you can change these settings from brush size. So if I want my brush to be bigger, I can go to a bigger brush size. So whoa, now I'm doing like the whole thing. It's too big. Let's bring that back down a little bit. So brush size, and notice that this opacity button is at 50. That means if it's at 100% opacity, it basically means that it's gonna paint 100% that snow texture. So instead of the grass texture, it's gonna take over and do all the snow. If I do it at like 10% opacity, it's just gonna barely kind of lightly color it. See that? So this is how this is the fun part of game design for me. It's the artistic side where you can kind of, play with these settings and adjust how much this texture is darker than the green underneath it, right? And again, all these changes I just made, I want to undo because I don't like them. So to undo changes, go to edit, undo, or even easier is hold the control button and tap on Z. And each time you tap and let go of Z, it's going to go back one more step. So this is what's really, really helpful. So I want to undo that. Later on when I make my mountains, I will show you guys how to do that. And so let's do that. Let's make some mountains. Show you guys how easy this is. So again, we're on the terrain game object in our scene view in the hierarchy. And I go over to where it says terrain, and let's click on this paint terrain again. But now we change this from paint texture or painting pictures on top of it to raise or lower terrain. Click on that. And it says right here, left click to raise, hold the shift button, and left click to lower. So I want to raise the terrain. And there's different brushes here, different ways you can raise the terrain. So if I wanted to raise in a circle, I could do that. And you can see right here, if I raise it, every time I click, it's getting higher and higher and higher. And look, it's kind of this like weird square looking thing. If I change this to a diffuse circle where it kind of like fades into the circle, look at how different this one is. When I click, it makes a circle, but it's kind of like almost like hills, right? Where it gradually goes up. And so if I keep clicking, you'll see how it kind of makes more of like a, and then if I click and hold the click, watch what happens. Whoa, I can quickly go way, way up. And so I could hold the click down right now and just go crazy, right? And just start making mountains. And so this is the fun part for me with Unity. It's the artistic side. And look at all these different brushes they have. So this brush will raise the terrain like kind of like randomly. Like look at this. See how it kind of makes these like jumbled looking like kind of natural things. And so I can mix these brushes all together to kind of just create these custom weird looking mountains. If I wanted to lower the terrain on one of these, I hold shift on my keyboard and click, and look at now it's lowering this mountain based off of whatever brush I have selected here. All right. So this one I definitely want to lower. I don't like that. That's kind of weird looking. But if I want to go to this diffuse one, if I want to change my brush size to be this whole area, I can go to brush size and up that a little bit. And now I could kind of raise this whole general area right here if I wanted to. So this is the fun part. This is where you guys can kind of just start to be artistic. And if you don't like what you're doing, if you want to smooth all these mountains out a little bit, you can also go to smooth height instead of raise or lower terrain, smooth height. Check this out. If I click on this, notice how it's kind of smoothing these mountains out so they're not so jagged. They're a little more like smooth now, and it'll kind of lower each time you click. So now I've got these mountains. I want to make one big mountain, so I'm going to change this to raise or lower terrain. Let's do this. Let's do this one right here, and make this brush size smaller, and actually make it a little bit bigger. No, bigger than that. Oh, that's too big. Yeah, you'll kind of see how you play with these settings to get where you want. But so I'm going to make this mountain, and then the top of the mountain I want to be kind of more jagged peaks. So I'm going to change the brush to this one right here, and change the brush size to smaller. And so look at now I can kind of make these jagged peaks. Change the brush size again. All right, so these really tall mountains would probably have snow on them, right? So you guys can see I'm just painting these mountains out right now, right? And so if I want to put snow on these, also keep in mind, guys, if you want the light to be brighter on your scene, right here, notice how in the scene it automatically adds this directional light, which is supposed to simulate the sun. And if you look up, the sun's right there. That's where it's at. And if I want to turn up that brightness, I click on directional light. And then in the inspector on the right-hand side, you could see all these settings I can change. And I can basically go down here, I think, to, let's see, it looks a little different now. Strength is at 1. Let's see. That's not what I want. Could change this to any kind of color or hue. I'm going to make it more of a white light. And what's weird is there used to be a little, oh yeah, intensity. So intensity, I could up it to 2 or whatever you want to do. So now you guys can kind of see this a little more clear. So you can put this intensity to whatever number you want. If you put it really high, it might start to look kind of weird. I'm just going to put 2 for now. I think that's good enough for you guys. And look at, if I move this directional light, if I click on directional light and my move tool, look at, if I move this light right here, the sun, look at how, as I do it, if I bring the light over here, actually it didn't do it. Usually it will change the shading of those mountains, but for now it's not doing it right away. Anyways, so we got some mountains. Let's put some snow on the top of these mountains, right? So let's go back to terrain, go to our paint terrain, change this to paint texture, and let's put some snow on here. So let's click on the snow right here, and let's change our brush type to just like this diffuse one, so it kind of fades in the snow. And let's make our size, I think that's actually about good, because I just want to do the tops of these mountains. So I hover over the mountains and I start clicking in snow. And if I want to look at the mountains from the other side where the light is, let's zoom in over here, use my scroll wheel to click in. Again, you can use your hand tool also to help you move around. Hold the right click button down on your mouse to kind of pivot and look around. And so now we can kind of see this a little more clear because the shade was on the other side, right? Because that's where the sun is facing this way. And so if I go back to terrain, paint texture, snow, let's keep painting some snow on the tops of these. I don't like the snow right there. I wonder if I want to go back to grass, I can change this back to my grass texture and paint this grass in to kind of make it so the snow is only on the tips of the mountains, just like it would be in real life, right? And there we go. So I think that's good enough for some snow. So anyways, so you guys can see how you can quickly have fun and basically just start making mountains, making, things that look like the real world around you. Okay, so that's kind of the terrain tool and how to play around with that. Remember that you've also got these other settings like smooth height, which can smooth the mountain tips out a little bit. So if I wanted to smooth these mountain tops up a little bit more, I can click there and you can kind of see it smoothing a little bit. Anyways, so that's that. And now I want to show you guys how to start adding stuff from the standard assets that you downloaded. Or again, if you found any other 3D assets in the asset store, you could go to Assets, 3D, change this to Pricing, Free Only, and these are all 3D objects then you could download and put into your game. All right, so you can have fun with this later on once you do the basics of what I'm showing you right now. There's a whole city. You could put city buildings in here to replicate a city. But right now I'm going to show you guys how to do some trees. All right, so let's go back to Unity. Let's go to our project folder, open up our assets, and we're looking for the Nature Starter Kit. Right, and the Nature Starter Kit, if we go into the Nature folder, it looks like on this one, we've got these trees and bushes, right? And so one way you can add these to your game is by clicking on a tree and just dragging it into your scene. And then you'll see how it adds it as an object in your scene right here in the hierarchy. So if I double click on it, I can zoom in on it and see that little tree. There we go. We've got a nice, beautiful little tree in our game. And we could keep dragging all these trees and different bushes in here to kind of start making this world. But doing it one by one like that, it would obviously take a long time if you wanted to make a forest, right? Thankfully, there is a really cool tool in the terrain game object where you go into the inspector where it says paint trees. This is a way to paint lots of trees or bushes or anything all at once, which is really cool. So we click on paint trees where it says no trees defined. Let's click edit trees, add tree. And what I'm going to do is where it says game object none, I click the little circle. And any of these things I could technically add as a tree. And these are all 3D objects in our game that we downloaded through that standard assets package and the Nature Starter Kit. So here's the nature stuff. You could technically paint a bunch of these aircraft if you wanted to do that, if you wanted to make an airfield. But for now, I just want bushes and trees. So let's add a couple of these basic trees. Click on add, and then let's add some more. Add tree, game object none. Let's click this, scroll down. Let's find some bushes. Double click, click add. So now if I click on one of these, like these trees, and I have this brush now that I can change the size with this knob. Tree density is how many trees are in one spot. Now if I click, boom, I just painted, wow, that was a lot of trees. So that just painted a lot of trees all at once. And it's kind of cool because it doesn't add it as a game object here in the hierarchy, which would get really cluttered. If you add, 100 trees, you'd have 100 objects right here. If you guys ever want to, by the way, condense things so it doesn't look like there's so many things in this list, if you're like me and that would stress you out, you can select these and basically drag them into each other to add them as children, which basically means it's kind of hidden under here. But for trees, I recommend doing it like this. Again, go back to terrain game object, click on the paint trees button. And right here, obviously the tree density on this, I think, is a little too high. This is like a really thick forest that is cool, but kind of intense. You can see underneath there's a lot of trees. And so if I want to do less trees, I change the tree density and I lower this way, way down. So now if I paint the trees, boom, there's only a few. That's a little bit more normal. And then if I want to put some, bushes, if I want to put some bushes in between these trees, I go to paint trees again, click on the bush that I had added, and now I can kind of put some little bushes. That's too many bushes. Control Z to undo. Let's go tree density. Let's lower this. Let's just put it, even that's too much. Let's do like 3 or 5. Heck, go. Let's do 5 again. Oh, 10's the lowest number. So yeah, so now I'm painting in some bushes. And if you wanted to erase trees, you would hold, it tells you right here, click to paint trees, hold shift and click to erase trees. And so if I hold it shift and clicked, it would delete whatever's there. If I want to bring them back, control Z to undo what I just did. So you can see how you can quickly, you can make the brush size bigger too if I wanted to like put a bunch of bushes in. Oh, I kind of like that. That's a good way to kind of randomly add them to the terrain. I don't want to put them on the mountain. Bushes usually don't show up on mountains. If I can go back to trees, let's make the brush size big, and I'm going to randomly paint some trees. If I wanted to make the brush size smaller to get rid of the trees in the middle where I want to have like a city, I could make this brush size like this, hold shift and click to kind of clear out the trees in this area where I want to have my little city or town. And then I can make this city, could be in a valley if I want to add some more mountains. I go back to the terrain game object, go to paint texture or paint terrain, change this to raise or lower terrain. Again, go to a different brush, maybe make this brush size a little bit bigger. I'm going to kind of make this whole area kind of mountainous so that there's like a little city here in the middle. If you ever lose what you're on, just go back and click on it in the game object. And then I want to make these little mountains. I'm going to make this brush size smaller. Let's make that actually a little bit bigger. So you guys can see how I'm kind of just shaping out these mountains up on the sides. And I probably don't want trees up on the top of the mountain, so let's hold shift and click to delete the trees at the top. I'll make this mountain right here very tall by going back to raise or lower terrain or paint terrain, raise or lower, and let's make this brush size a little smaller. Make this mountain really, really tall. Kind of like what we have in our mountains, right? And then I'm going to put some snow back on top by going to paint texture, change it to paint texture, click on the snow, put some snow at the very top there. All right, so we've got, yeah, and you obviously could spend more time on this to make it look really legit, but you've got this basic environment, right? And we could, again, go to our assets, into our standard assets that we had downloaded. And there's all this stuff you guys can play with in here. The big one is obviously environment. Excuse me. Environment there's water in here. And I actually show you guys in this video that I made for the YouTube video. It shows you how to put the water in. And in fact, I mean, I could show you how to do that now as well, but it's pretty much in there. We've also got vehicles. You guys can actually put a car in here and drive it around. And that's what I want to show you how to do right now is, okay, we have this cool game environment, right? But how do I walk around in it and actually look at stuff instead of just looking at through the scene view, right? And so what you do is in this standard assets package, there is something under here, a folder called characters. And if we go into characters and we've got this first person and third person. So first person, guys, in a game that you played, it's like you're looking through the eyes of the person when you play the game, right? Third person is where you can actually see the person that you're controlling from above, like above them, right? It's kind of like you're looking down at them, but you can control them. If I want to make this first person, I would go into this, again, assets in my project folder, standard assets, characters, first person, and where it says prefabs is the fancy word for something that's already built for you. It is a combination of a lot of different things. And in this case, this prefab for this FPS controller basically means that it has, if I click and drag this into my game, I'm going to add a first person character. So if I go and drag him in there, I think hopefully I should be able to play this. And now let's see if this works. Just like that, might not work right away. Yeah, so right here, this is the first big lesson, guys. When you go to play your game and it says compiler errors have to be fixed, that means there's bugs or there's errors. And this is what's really annoying about making apps and games, is fixing and finding out what the errors are. So I'm going to go here, and it's saying that this standard asset, it's just saying that this is an old asset and this one is obsolete. So usually what I do if I find something like this is I just go and delete that that asset. So basically it's saying in standard assets, in the utility folder, there's a script called simple activator menu. So I'm going to go just delete that because I don't really need that right now. So there it is. I could also search for stuff in your project folder if you want to search for it right there. But basically, I'm going to delete this because I don't think we need that. So delete that, and let's see if that makes our error go away, which it did. All right. If it says you need to make an update, just hit no thanks. That's fine. And yeah, it's basically going to say there's more little problems here. And so what I'm going to do is same thing, just go and delete whatever these things are because I don't need these. So that's the only thing with these standard assets. You're downloading a lot of stuff that you probably don't even need, really. And so whatever you don't need from the standard assets, you can just go and delete it. So if it's giving you an error, just delete it. Should be fine. And basically, let's go and delete all of these too. I don't need those. All right. So we've got our first person controller in here. We deleted the stuff that we don't need. Now, if we hit play, hopefully this works. There we go. And so now I can control my player by using the W, A, S, and D keys to move left, right, forward, and back. I can also use my arrow keys on my keyboard. You guys can probably hear the steps that are built in. And then I can look around with my mouse, and I can go, and if I hold shift, I can run. If I press the space bar, I can jump. And then I can go and basically explore this 3D world that I have. And so just like that, you guys can see that's how fast it is to make a 3D environment and be able to walk around in it and go and look at like these beautiful trees right here. They look, these look amazing. This is like Minecraft on steroids, you know? And if I go up here, let's go up to the very top here and then let's look down. Valley. So boom, look at this. Beautiful, right? Like this is to me the most fun part about Unity, is being able to make these just awesome, realistic looking 3D worlds. And right now, this game, guys, I could actually publish this game to an app that you could then download and play from your computer. So this is what's fun about it. Anyways, that's all I want to kind of show you guys for today, because I know it's a long time to sit there and pay attention and watch. But I am recording this right now, and so I'm going to make this recording available in our Empower activity under here in Empower, in this custom terrain game level. I've got this tutorial that walks you through what I just did, but just keep in mind this is 2 years old, so there might be some things that look slightly different. And so I'm also going to, right after this, in fact, I'll just do it right now, I'm going to post a video from the Screencastify that I just made right now. And guys, this is the same way that you guys turn things into me, that you show me the projects that you've been working on. You make a Screencastify recording just like I did right now and explain to me, you know, what it is that I'm looking at. And once you're done recording your Screencastify, you hit stop.